A man found a pregnant cat on the street. When he looked closer, his blood ran cold. It was one of those evenings where exhaustion sits heavy on your shoulders. Marcus had just finished a double shift at the warehouse, and all he could think about was getting home, kicking off his boots, and collapsing on the couch. The autumn air was cold and damp as he walked through his neighborhood. Streetlights flickered to life one by one, casting long shadows across empty sidewalks. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter and quickened his pace. He was almost home when he heard it, a sound so faint he almost missed it. A weak, desperate meow. Marcus stopped. He looked around, trying to locate the source. That's when he saw her. Huddled against the concrete wall of an apartment building was a cat. But this wasn't just any stray looking for food. Something about her made Marcus's stomach turn. She sat completely still, her fur matted and dirty. Her eyes, dull and hopeless, stared at nothing. She looked like she'd given up on life entirely. "Hey there, girl," Marcus called softly, approaching slowly. "You okay?" The cat didn't move, didn't even acknowledge him. That's when alarm bells started ringing in Marcus's head. Even the most timid strays usually react to humans, either running away or coming closer. But this cat, she was frozen, like she didn't have the energy to do either. Marcus knelt down a few feet away, not wanting to scare her. That's when he got his first real look at her, and his heart nearly stopped. The cat's belly was grotesquely swollen, far bigger than it should be, even for a pregnant cat. But that wasn't the worst part. As Marcus stared, he saw movement. Not the gentle kicks of unborn kittens, but something else. Something that made his skin crawl. The surface of her belly was rippling, undulating, like something was eating its way through from the inside. "Oh, God," Marcus whispered, his hand covering his mouth. He leaned closer, and that's when he saw them. The wounds. Dozens of small bloody holes dotted her swollen stomach. Some were fresh and seeping. Others looked infected, surrounded by inflamed, reddened skin. And in a few of those holes he could see movement. Something white and wriggling. Larvae. Marcus felt bile rise in his throat. The cat was being eaten alive by maggot larvae, probably laid by botflies or blowflies that had found her weak and vulnerable. They'd burrowed into her flesh and were now feeding on her from the inside out. For a moment, Marcus couldn't move, couldn't think. The horror of what he was seeing paralyzed him. The cat turned her head slowly, the movement taking obvious effort, and looked directly at him. Her eyes, though clouded with pain and exhaustion, held something that broke Marcus's heart. A plea. She couldn't speak, couldn't beg, but those eyes said everything. "Please, help me. I'm dying." That look shattered Marcus's paralysis. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and started searching for emergency vet clinics. Most were closed. It was nearly 8 p.m. But finally he found one that stayed open late for emergencies. "Hang on, girl," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "I'm getting you help. Just hang on." He carefully, so carefully, slipped his hands under the cat. She was lighter than he expected, just skin and bones beneath the swollen belly. She didn't resist, didn't fight. She simply went limp in his arms, as if she'd been waiting for someone to finally help her. Marcus held her against his chest as he half walked, half ran toward his car parked down the street. He could feel her breathing, rapid and shallow. He could feel the unnatural warmth of infection radiating from her belly. And, worst of all, he could feel the movement of the larvae through the thin barrier of her skin. "Stay with me," he kept whispering during the 15-minute drive to the clinic. "Stay with me. You're gonna be okay. I promise." The fluorescent lights of the emergency vet clinic were harsh and bright. A young receptionist looked up as Marcus burst through the door, the dying cat cradled in his arms. "Please," Marcus gasped. "She needs help. Right now." The receptionist's eyes widened as she saw the cat's condition. She immediately hit a button on her desk. "Dr. Stevens! Emergency!" Within seconds, a gray-haired man in a white coat emerged from the back. Dr. Stevens took one look at the cat and his expression turned grim. "Bring her back. Now." Marcus followed him into an examination room. The doctor gently took the cat from his arms and laid her on a metal table under bright lights. "How long has she been like this?" Dr. Stevens asked, his hands already moving expertly over the cat, examining her. "I don't know. I just found her like this 20 minutes ago." The doctor carefully parted the fur around the cat's belly, revealing the full extent of the horror. Even he, who'd seen countless cases of animal suffering, grimaced. "Cutaneous myiasis," he said quietly. "Fly larvae infestation. One of the worst cases I've seen." He looked up at Marcus. "You saved her life by bringing her in. Another day, maybe even another few hours, and she'd be dead. Can you help her?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do everything I can," Dr. Stevens said. "But I need to be honest with you. It's going to be expensive. We're talking surgery to remove all the larvae, antibiotics, wound treatment, monitoring, probably around $800 to $200. And there's no guarantee she'll make it." Marcus didn't even hesitate. "Do it, whatever it costs. Just save her." Dr. Stevens nodded, respect showing in his eyes. "What's your name?" "Marcus." "Marcus Thompson. Well, Marcus, you're a good man. Now I need you to wait outside while we work. This is going to take a while." The next 3 hours were the longest of Marcus's life. He sat in the empty waiting room, unable to focus on his phone, unable to think about anything except that cat lying on the operating table. He thought about her eyes, the way she'd looked at him, like she knew he was her last hope. Finally, at nearly midnight, Dr. Stevens emerged. He looked exhausted, but there was a small smile on his face. "She made it," he said. Marcus felt his knees go weak with relief. "Really?" "Really. She's stable. We removed over 40 larvae from her body." He paused as Marcus made a horrified sound. "I know. It was bad. We've cleaned and dressed all the wounds, started her on strong antibiotics, and given her fluids and nutrients. She's sleeping now. Can I see her?" Dr. Stevens hesitated, then nodded. "For a minute. But she needs rest." He led Marcus to a recovery room where small kennels lined the walls. In one of them, wrapped in a soft blanket, was the cat. She looked so different already, cleaner, more peaceful. Her breathing was steady and deep. "She's pregnant, isn't she?" Marcus asked, noticing that even with the swelling reduced, her belly was still round. "Yes, about 6 weeks along, I'd estimate. 4, maybe 5 kittens." Dr. Stevens looked at Marcus seriously. "She'll need a safe, warm place to recover and eventually give birth. Do you have experience with cats?" Marcus shook his head. "No, I've never had a pet before." "Well," Dr. Stevens said with a slight smile, "you do now. Unless you're planning to surrender her to a shelter?" Marcus looked at the sleeping cat. After everything they'd been through in just a few hours, the idea of abandoning her felt impossible. "No," he said firmly. "She's coming home with me." 3 days later, Marcus returned to the clinic to pick her up. Dr. Stevens had called him that morning with good news. She was eating, her wounds were healing well, and she was strong enough to go home. "I've been calling her Survivor around here," Dr. Stevens said with a chuckle as he brought her out in a carrier. "But she deserves a proper name." Marcus looked at the cat through the carrier door. She looked back at him with clear, bright eyes, so different from the dull, dying eyes he'd first seen. "Mila," Marcus said suddenly. The name had just come to him. "I'll call her Mila." "Mila," Dr. Stevens repeated, nodding approvingly. "It suits her." He handed Marcus a bag full of medications, special food, and detailed care instructions. "Change her bandages twice a day. Make sure she gets all her antibiotics. And keep her calm and comfortable. She's going to need lots of rest, especially with those kittens coming." Marcus's apartment had never housed an animal before. He'd always thought of himself as too busy, too focused on work to be a pet owner. But as he set up a cozy corner in his bedroom with soft blankets, food and water bowls, and a litter box, he realized how wrong he'd been. Mila was hesitant at first. She explored her new home slowly, cautiously, like she couldn't quite believe she was safe. But by the end of the first day, she'd curled up on the blanket Marcus had placed at the foot of his bed and fallen asleep. Over the next few weeks, Marcus watched an amazing transformation. Mila's wounds healed, leaving only small scars hidden beneath her growing fur. Her eyes became brighter. She started grooming herself, a sign of returning health and dignity, and her belly grew rounder, not with infection this time, but with healthy, growing kittens. She followed Marcus around the apartment, meowing softly when he left for work, purring loudly when he returned. At night, she slept next to him, occasionally resting her paw on his arm as if to make sure he was still there. Marcus found himself talking to her about his day, his worries, his thoughts, and somehow her presence made his small apartment feel less lonely, less empty. It happened on a Saturday morning, exactly 5 weeks after Marcus had brought Mila home. He woke to an unusual sound, a low, rhythmic moaning. He sat up quickly and looked at Mila's bed. She was in labor. "Okay," Marcus said, trying to stay calm even though his heart was racing. "Okay, it's happening. You got this, Mila." He'd read articles and watched videos preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared him for the actual experience. Mila was panting heavily, her body contracting with effort. Marcus sat nearby, not interfering but ready to help if needed. Dr. Stevens had told him that most cats handled birth naturally, but to call if anything seemed wrong. The first kitten arrived after about 40 minutes, a tiny, wet bundle that Mila immediately began cleaning with her tongue. Marcus watched in awe as the newborn's tiny mouth opened in a silent mew. The second kitten came 20 minutes later, then the third, then the fourth. 4 healthy, squirming kittens, 3 orange tabbies and 1 gray, all nursing vigorously as Mila lay exhausted but content, purring so loudly Marcus could hear it across the room. He sat there on the floor, watching this small miracle, and felt tears streaming down his face. This cat, who'd been dying on a cold street corner eaten alive by parasites, had survived. Not only survived, but brought new life into the world. "You did it, Mila," Marcus whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're amazing." The weeks that followed were chaotic. 4 kittens meant 4 times the noise, 4 times the mess, and 4 times the entertainment. Marcus's apartment became a playground of tiny paws, clumsy tumbles, and constant mischief. Mila was a devoted mother. She watched over her babies constantly, grooming them, nursing them, and teaching them how to be cats. When they started exploring beyond their bed, she'd gently pick them up by the scruff and carry them back to safety. Marcus found himself waking up earlier to spend time with them before work. He'd sit on the floor with his coffee and the kittens would climb all over him, tiny claws digging into his shirt, whiskers tickling his face. His coworkers noticed the change in him. He smiled more. He seemed lighter, happier. When they asked why, he'd pull out his phone and show them videos of the kittens, unable to hide his pride. "Never thought I'd be a cat dad," he admitted to one colleague, "but here we are." When the kittens were 8 weeks old and ready for adoption, Marcus made a decision. He found good homes for 3 of them, carefully vetting each family to make sure they'd be loved and cared for. But the gray one, the smallest of the litter, who'd stolen his heart by constantly falling asleep in his lap, that one stayed. "So you're keeping 2 cats?" Dr. Stevens asked during a checkup visit, grinning. Marcus looked at Mila, healthy and beautiful, and at the little gray kitten he'd named Ash. "Yeah," he said, smiling. "Guess I am." A year later, Marcus still thinks about that cold autumn evening, about the choice he'd made to stop, to look closer, to help when it would have been easier to walk away. That decision changed his life in ways he never expected. His apartment is warmer now, filled with the sounds of purring and the soft patting of paws. He's not as lonely. He has a purpose beyond just work and sleep, and Mila, beautiful, strong Mila, is the best companion he could have asked for. She still sleeps next to him every night, still rests her paw on his arm. Sometimes Marcus wonders if she remembers that night, if she knows how close she came to dying. But then she looks at him with those bright, clear eyes, so different from the dying eyes he'd first seen. And he knows. She remembers. And she's grateful. This story isn't just about one man saving one cat. It's about the incredible resilience of life. It's about how a single moment of compassion can ripple outward, creating waves of change. It's about how the most unexpected encounters can become the most meaningful relationships. Marcus never thought of himself as a hero. He was just a guy walking home from work who decided to help. But to Mila and her kittens, he was everything. Sometimes that's all it takes, just one person willing to stop, to look closer, to care, and sometimes the life you save ends up saving you right back. If this story touched your heart, remember, there are countless animals out there who need help. Whether it's adopting from a shelter, fostering, volunteering, or simply stopping to help a stray in need, every action matters. Every life matters.